I'd like to welcome everybody this morning. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't had an opportunity yet, there is going to be a little prize drawing at the end of today's session. So if you haven't had the opportunity, please be sure and drop your business card off in the basket at the door. If you forgot to bring them, as many of us did today, we do have some blank business cards as well. You can go ahead and fill that out, put your name, as well as also some type of a phone number or email address. But we're going to do the drawing at the end of this session. All right. Well, again, good morning. My name is Jared Hardy. I'm here from Millsaps. I'm a professor of management at the Else School of Management. Certainly a pleasure to be here this morning. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it is transforming the industry, creating change, creating innovation, efficiency, as we look forward in the next 5 to 10 years. Very, very excited to have our panelists here with us today. I'm going to make some quick introductions. To my right is J.J. Townsend. He is the TechSpark Mississippi lead at Microsoft Philanthropies. He's a former educator and not-for-profit leader. J.J. is passionate about creating economic opportunities for historically excluded communities, leading Microsoft's philanthropic, It is. Well, especially at 9:30, J.J. Come on now. Work with me. Efforts in Mississippi, he focuses on creating systematic change by investing in 3 pillars that help drive inclusive economic opportunity: digital skills, digital transformation, and non-for-profit capacity building. JJ is a graduate of the University of Mississippi and holds a master's in educational leadership. Please help me welcome JJ Townsend. Next to JJ is Dr. Nashley Cephas. She is the principal AI ML evangelist for Amazon AI, focusing on fairness and identifying biases at AWS AI. She formerly was the CTO of AI startup PartPick, based in Atlanta, which was acquired by the Amazon Visual Search team. After then joining Amazon as an applied science manager, she led many product launches, including visual search for replacement parts on the Amazon shopping app in June 2018. Also in 2018, Dr. Cephas became the founder and CEO of the BeamPath non-for-profit organization based here in Jackson. In September of 2020, she became the owner and developer of the Jackson Tech District, which is 21 acres of mixed-use commercial real estate in downtown Jackson to help bring tech training and workforce economic development to the area. Please help me welcome Dr. Cephas. Next up, Greg Hall. Greg is currently the Director of Information Technology with the Center for Telehealth at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, where he has worked for the past 23 years. His main responsibilities center around the technology that is utilized by the university in any of its telehealth programs. He helped to establish Tele-Emergency, a telehealth program that supports rural emergency departments across the state of Mississippi that just celebrated 20 years of seeing patients in emergency departments across Mississippi. He also serves as the technical lead for the HARSA Telehealth Center of Excellence designation. Help me welcome Greg Hall. And last, Dr. Craig Orgeron. He has extensive information technology experience in the private, federal, and state levels of the public sector. Dr. Orgeron is a professor of management information systems at the Else School of Management at Millsaps College. We actually share the same hallway. After beginning his career as a communications computer systems officer in the United States Air Force, he served as the executive director of the Mississippi Department of Information Technology Services and chief information officer for the state of Mississippi. Dr. Orgeron has served as an executive government advisor with Amazon Web Services, president of the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, and on the executive committee of the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Dr. Orgeron holds a bachelor's degree in MIS, a master's degree, and a doctorate in public policy and administration from Mississippi State University, and is also a graduate of the Harvard University program as well. Welcome, Dr. Orgeron. All right. Well, we're going to be starting this morning with kind of a general question. We're going to go for about 30 minutes with some prepared questions that I have gotten for our panel. And then we'll also open it up for questions in the audience for like the last 10 minutes. But to get things started here today, I'll start with Nashley. If you would, how do you see AI transforming industries in the next 5 to 10 years, and what opportunities do you see bringing to businesses?
Okay, good question. So let's talk about first how we got here. So I always say I grew up in the age of dial-up. You know, when my grandmother, you had to use the phone, I had to stop downloading my songs, and it would take forever. And so, two things have evolved since that time and that age. One thing is how we store data. We're now able to store a whole lot more data. We also have a whole lot more data, unless you're a very strange person. I don't see us waking up one day and saying, "I want to delete all of my pictures from before 2005." I only see us getting more and more pictures, right? And so we're gonna have this problem of how do we continue to store data. The second thing that has evolved has been how fast we transport that data across different data lines. And so with the advancement of the cloud, and shameless plug, AWS has some great cloud services for you to check out. We want to make sure that people understand, okay, there are more options than it was before. And that is really what brought us into this age of AI. Because if you think about it, these algorithms have been around for decades. The government has been using this because they had the power, they had supercomputers to be able to do this computation, which is a lot of math, a whole lot of math, that we just can't do on our own. And so when you have more places to store data, which data, AI starts with data. It starts with learning from previous patterns in data. If you have a place and a way to store that, the more data, sometimes the better. It's not always the case. But you're also able to transport that data and have very fast computation power. That brings us into the current age that we are now, where my grandmother can open up ChatGPT, and she now knows what I'm talking about when I say AI. So now, how do we get to the next stage? I think there's so much innovation. The fact that we have better interfaces to the tools, we have faster tools, we have larger tools that can hold more space. You now have more access. So technology now becomes more accessible, more inclusive, and you now see innovation in areas that didn't have access to that before. I think it's a great thing as long as we use it responsibly, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. I will just say, last thing, the two areas of industries I think are very primitive and very promising are the areas of healthcare as well as the areas of transportation when it comes to AI. Those are the two that I would place my bets on if I were you, but that's just me.
Totally agree in the healthcare space.
Well, thank you, Nashley. Next, we'll go to JJ. And Nashley gave us some insights into kind of where AI might impact us as we move forward. But of course, I think many of us continue to struggle with what are the skill sets that we're going to need? How do we either collaborate with organizations like Microsoft or Amazon or others to either get those skill sets or at least help us to transform our existing organizations? Give us some insight.
Yeah, so for us, we just released some data that more than half of organizations say that they would love to integrate AI and do better, but they don't have the employees to actually do it. They don't have enough. We don't have the workforce to actually go forward with it. So a big part with my role with philanthropies is to work on the skilling aspect of it. So our education leaders with the K-12 space, higher ed, we're really looking at how do we not just work with the traditional settings, but also the alternative routes, so like the Mississippi Coding Academies. If you heard of the Mississippi AI Collaborative, there's a table out there. I'll do a shameless plug. Let me pull up the little flyer so you can see it. So this is the AI Collaborative. We really have tried to break down some silos. I know some organizations were doing a few things, and so now I think we have the Mississippi Coding Academy, we have the Bean Path, we have Jackson State on board, and we're really hoping to get a few more folks on that collaborative team. But one of the things is just to really work directly with the schools. We have a lot of resources through the LinkedIn Learning courses that we've released. We also have the Microsoft Learn that we're dishing out to support. And one of the other areas that we're supporting with that is just the data insights. So LinkedIn is one of our products or companies, and so with all of our partners, we work closely to release some of the data released from the Workers Index from LinkedIn Learning as well.
right, thank you. You know, as organizations continue to embrace AI and the use of AI, one of the things that we all will have to consider is the ethical use of AI. So Craig, I'll move to you. What ethical considerations and biases should businesses be mindful of when they begin to implement AI or to optimize their operations? And how do you think that's going to impact labor? And would also ask again, Nashlie, you follow up after Craig, please.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of interesting points to make. I read earlier this week that hallucinations among chatbots it ranges from somewhere between 3 and 27%. And so when I read that, I really had that thought of, right, from a business perspective, that we're using these tools, and if that range of 3 to 27% suggests that this tool I'm using may not be accurate, the first thought I have is risk. What does that mean for my business, right? What is the use case that I'm using the tool for, and how do I assess that risk, potentially quantitatively, and how do I mitigate it, right? So the area that I tend to look at is public sector. And in public sector, from a policy perspective, there's really a lot going on in this space. In 2023, 25 states introduced legislation to deal with artificial intelligence. 6 states issued executive orders on the heels of the federal executive order that came out after the AI Bill of Rights. And 1 state, the state of Maine, hope there's nobody from Maine here, said moratorium. We're not going to do AI. We're going to press pause. So from a policy perspective, right, governments really have large amounts of impact on citizens. And from a policy perspective, I think states are very much in the throes of trying to grapple with what this means ethically. But I think 3 points come to mind. First, you've got to have logarithmic integrity, right? The algorithms have to be doing what they say they're doing, right? And I think that there's a lot of really interesting information out there, right? So there's a wonderful book called The Ethical Algorithm. If you want to read something slightly more scary, although it's after Halloween, you might want to read The Weapons of Math Destruction. Both of them are pretty interesting books to really, to Nashlie's point, understand the power of data. So I think you have to have integrity in the algorithm that you have. 2, and Nashlie made this point I thought very well, it's really about the data. We're sort of enamored with the tools and the models that get, under AI, that get trained using machine learning, but you have to have well-architected and well-curated data that you trust, right? Because if biases are going to be put in and through models, it's going to happen at the data level. And I think number 3 is to deal with number 1 and number 2, you need diversity and equity in your teams. The best way to ensure that data is not only well curated and architected but sustainable is to have a diverse team with stakeholders that can point that out. So there's another wonderful book, without sounding too much like a professor, called Power to the Public. And it talks about a 311 system in New York City that was tracking rats, right? And they were suspect of the data in the system, right? And they were suspect because in the Bedford-Stuy area, it was showing that there wasn't any rats, but obviously there were. And so when the team from the New York City IT group went out and talked to citizens, the answer they got back is, what's 311, right? So there is a disconnect between the use of the technology and the value that it can bring. And I think we've got to remedy that to make headway.
Nashlie?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just to piggyback on that. And actually, the authors of The Ethical Algorithm are on my team at Amazon. We're on the Responsible AI team, Michael Kearns and Aaron Roth. It is a pretty good book if you want to check it out. And there are lots of others, too.
I think it's for sale on Amazon.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah,
I thought I beat you to that. So.
But yeah, so I think 2 other hallucinations is a big concern. 2 of the other ones we see, I mean, there are many, but one is called toxicity. So if you are using generative AI products and you're using it in an unsupervised or a way that doesn't have a human in the loop, just be careful of certain language that could be passed back to the user that could be potentially discriminatory or harmful to marginalized or protected groups. And there are ways around that as well. But the thing about it is, if you have a company and you're using a third-party product, if they update that product, they change that product, there's really no way for you to control how that's going to affect you on the other end. And so I tell people all the time, you have to continuously check and continuously test and monitor your model in whatever way that it's being used. It's not just a one and done, we're going to create software and deploy it. When it comes to AI, you have to create an iterative life cycle to where you're monitoring at every stage. There could be situations where you deploy the system and there could be no biases. It could be perfectly fine in the environment in which it was deployed. But over time, there could be changes in that environment that happen that now cause your product to become more biased. And the only way you know that is if you have some sort of feedback loop from the end user. Sometimes the end user is not actually the person that is your customer. Sometimes that's another group of people that you need to have some connection with and continuously monitor. The other topic of concern with a lot of generative AI tools is the intellectual property and violating any copyright issues. So there's a big legal battle right now that says just because information is available and it's on the internet, does that mean you can use it? And that's a big question that we have to answer. And so if you think about it, we have no idea what these AI models have been trained on. Even OpenAI, they have papers and they release studies. GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, those are the large language models that they use. But there are so many other products out there that oftentimes, and even as Amazon even has one too, but they have policies where they don't want to share all of their product information, and no one's requiring them to. And so you just have to take into consideration all those things, and these are concerns that you as a business owner or you as a user of the technology or a developer of the technology should be aware of at all times.
Thank you, Nashley. Greg, Nashley had mentioned again how much AI has a potential use within the healthcare industry. So when you think about AI technologies and that rapid evolution, what are some recent trends and/or changes and/or uses that you see with AI that will help within the healthcare industry?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot around, the ethical uses of AI, and that especially rings true in healthcare. We are just now cusping AI in healthcare, honestly. There's a couple of organizations up in the Northeast that have partnered and taken AI to the next level in healthcare, and the question is, how willing is an organization to actually share that data? So back to the sharing the data portion, and that especially rings true in healthcare. We are required by law to protect patient data. So with that comes the responsibility of informing the patient of what we are going to do with the information that is gathered, especially in an AI environment, and then show the value to the patients of what you're actually going to get if we turn on this AI model. And that is what is being actually spoken about in the IRB studies and on other studies is how close of a loop do you have to do the AI model? So if a model was trained in California, can we realistically bring that model to Mississippi and expect it to not have hallucinations back to that point? We don't think the answer to that is yes, honestly. A patient in California is much different than a patient in Mississippi. So what we're referring to is the last mile of digital training. And that is going to be a concept I think is especially crucial in healthcare, is to make sure that you aren't just taking a model out of the box and expecting to turn it on and it work in your environment, that you really do have to do some additional training. It's not a lot of training. It's enough cases that the model can actually see what is going on in a patient room and actually make it meaningful.
If I could add two more along the lines of that, just two things really quickly to be mindful of that are also coming into the forefront. Guardrail models, which is a way of filtering out the negative things that you don't want to show up as a result of using generative AI. So guardrail models and watermarking. So watermarking is a way to potentially determine if a response you're getting back from a generative AI product has been already used or copyrighted before. So there are measures that we're taking as an industry to try to protect against these things and enforce against those as well. So just be mindful of that.
Thank you. JJ, shifting to you, what additional challenges have you seen organizations face that are looking to implement AI solutions, whether, again, that's skill-based, whether it's infrastructure, and how do they try to overcome those things?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of already talked about that one, but yeah, skills, and that's why we've really prioritized that. So FY24, I think some of you in the room probably got a memo from me about the big shift with AI and just the grant making and just for philanthropies, we really are focused on skilling efforts, and again, one of the things we're doing is again with higher ed institutions, the schools. But I think, can you say the last part of the question again?
Yeah, just what advice would you give kind of organizations that are looking to implement AI solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Prioritize skilling. I think, you've talked about it a little bit. And not just, I think y'all are kind of on the more operational side, but just even, any employee in the company, whether it's, your front desk person, all the way up to the top executive, there's, some way that they can integrate it into their work stream. And so, we really are, I mean, right now, this first fiscal year, we're focused on, just the basic AI fluency. So just really getting people to not be so afraid of AI. I think that's the biggest hurdle, is just, it's not the big bad, new tech thing that's coming at you. But as a former educator, I know we work with a lot of, educators with philanthropies. They're obviously afraid of just the cheating aspect of, Gen AI. And so one of the things I always tell them is, it's going to require us to assign, tasks differently to the students. So, if you're going to give an assignment around writing an essay, you might assign them to go home and write the essay, using ChatGPT or something. But then you're going to come back and analyze and critique that essay, not using those tools. And so, I think it's just going to require, similar to the calculator in math, it requires a little bit more higher order thinking, a little bit more work in the classroom, and just shifting our education to understand that. So we're working really closely at the ground level with educators so that once they get to the companies, 2040, 2050, this is kind of a norm for the students when they enter the workplace.
Okay, thank you. Kind of shifting away from we've talked about many of the challenges, whether it's ethical concerns, data security. Certainly these are monumental concerns we have with AI. But I know many people sit in the audience or with organizations that also want to implement it because they're going to get efficiencies. It's going to make their organizations better. And so I'd like to shift to Greg, if you would. How is AI going to be used in the healthcare industry, either to drive efficiencies and or just give better service?
Yeah, one of the challenges we're facing in healthcare, I'm sure you all know, is we have an aging population versus a healthcare industry that just went through COVID, that is tired, that is losing workforce. We're the only industry that actually year over year is less productive than we were the previous year. So to take all that into account and be able to actually meet the healthcare demands of the United States, one of the things we're going to have to look at is AI and how to operationalize AI in a real-world environment. So some of the things we're looking at is putting a camera in a patient room and what all that can do. So some of the operation efficiencies in that is, hey, we can all of a sudden automate fall prevention. I heard a surgeon speak recently. He's like, I just did a kidney transplant. The worst thing that can happen is that patient try to get out of bed to go to the bathroom, fall, and all of a sudden that $80,000 procedure is now worthless, basically, because that patient developed an infection and ended up passing away anyway. So it's those kind of operational developments that we're going to use in healthcare to be able to meet the need of the healthcare industry. I'll just give you a quick example of how it can save so much time in such a little aspect: oral care. So we have to document that we actually went into a patient room and performed oral care. Oral care takes 2 to 3 minutes, not a big deal. What takes longer, an average of 5 minutes per session, is a nurse having to log into the EMR, the medical record, and actually document that they did oral care. And so one of the big crux around AI is you not only have to sell it to the people you're using it for, but you're having to sell it to staff as well. So being able to tell that nurse, hey, instead of you having to log into a medical record just to document oral care, why not let the AI recognize that you just did oral care, or have the camera in there and simply say, this did oral care, and the AI is actually what goes into the medical record and actually document that encounter. You save 5 minutes per patient. Typical nurse has 16 to 24 patients that they're looking at. You saved at least 90 minutes in a 12-hour shift just by that little step. That is a tenfold, about a 12% increase in efficiency with just that one procedure. And that's only one use case that we can come up with in healthcare.
Thank you. To continue along those lines, Craig, we've seen an increase in AI-driven chat bots, virtual assistants. They've become pretty common in customer service. How do you see those continuing to impact things like customer support and/or engagement in organizations or from a customer-facing side?
So the state of Mississippi rolled out its first chatbot in 2018, and the chatbot was named Missy. And it was one of the first chatbots in the country. It won an award for sort of being groundbreaking off of Mississippi.gov, the state's portal. But I think a couple things come to mind. I think, in the public sector, you're always short on typically the resources that you might need, right? So, the ability to do 24/7 kinds of business is critical. The ability to be able to scale is really, really important, right? So you can actually do more potentially with slightly less. But beyond the idea of personalization, it may be really an access point, right? So I was recently talking to King County, Washington, that rolled out a system for voter engagement in 7 languages, right? So the ability to be multilingual and help to make those connections with citizens using these chatbots beyond personalization is pretty impressive. The other thing is that some of these technologies can lay on top of disparate systems in government, right? So one of the downsides is that these systems typically can live in silos, right? And that means that one entity in a government may not know who you are if you're interfacing someplace else. So what we want these tools to be able to do is to sort of horizontally connect the dots, right? To be able to personalize these services and to be able to connect the dots for citizens. What we talk about in this space is digital essentials, and we talk about it in terms of government as a service. What we want is for it to be contactless, hopefully. We want to disintermediate it, and we want to get citizens as close to these services as possible. At a minimum, we want it to be frictionless, right? We want it to be automated, we want it to be intelligent, we want it to be pervasive across platforms and secure. Those are digital essentials that I think drive efficiencies.
Nash, do a follow-up. What have you seen in terms of lessons learned, either within the organizations you've been involved with or Amazon, that you would pass on to entrepreneurs and or business operators in the audience?
Yeah, so especially with BeamPath, we've helped over 3,000 people get access to technology, or small businesses get access to tech help or a CTO. And what I've found is that the more we, especially in our communities, we fear technology, the farther we get behind. And so what we try to do is focus on education and ways that we can show them, a softer side of AI for those who are, afraid of the technology, and also show them, hey, I could do it, you could do it. And a lot of people are out here doing some amazing things who are not even technical. As they say, most of the CEOs of these huge tech companies were not even graduates of college. And let alone have a technical engineering degree or computer science degree. And so I think the access of the tools has really allowed us to do that and continue doing that, especially with Microsoft helping along the way. And I think in terms of what I'm seeing on the on the corporate and the industry side, and as well as some of the government side as well, is that it's getting to the point where we can't ignore it anymore. You know, everybody's talking about it. I almost hate that everybody's talking about it now because I'm like, well, we've been doing this, but you know. But in a good way, it's good because now I can have a conversation with everybody instead of them just acting like they don't know what I'm talking about. And so a lot of companies are, if you think about AWS, we sell tools that other companies use to build things. And it's pretty, remarkable that, some of the top companies, Netflix, several Airbnb, some of your top companies use the tools, but these customers as well as startups, they're asking the hard questions. You know, they're wanting to know, okay, when you create your technology, what were you testing it on? Do you have a evaluation report you can show me? And they're making more informed decisions about how they're going to spend their money on the tools they use to build their products. And I just want to educate everyone else to do the same. Don't just take it for face value. The nature of AI is built on probability and statistics. There's always a percentage of risk, and you have to understand what that risk is, and there's always trade-offs. We're not going to be able to optimize across every single issue, but you just have to know what's the impact of this particular amount of risk in your particular product. And once you understand that, then you can make more informed decisions and move forward.
Okay. One of the areas that I think we've all experienced at least some impact or interface with AI is in customer service. And AI certainly can play a crucial role in creating what we call personalized customer service. More and more, we want personalized, custom products to us. Can any of you, this is for all of you, how have organizations leveraged AI to deliver that unparalleled value that customers are looking for to create competitive advantage? Right? How do they get better? How do they create an experience from an AI perspective that makes them want to come back and either buy their goods or services again and again and again?
Well, I'll chime in. I say, so the classics, if not necessarily before generative AI, right? So the 3 Ps of artificial intelligence typically are, I want to recognize patterns is the first. I want to automate processes once I do that. And then the third P ultimately is predict, right? I want to be able to predict. And I think that those models have gotten much, much better predicting. So these recommendation systems have gotten much, much better to give me less noise, but better predictions about potentially what I want to buy.
Anyone else?
I'd say in the healthcare space, and I will be very frank, we are not doing the shit. It's just getting a simple appointment. I'm sure you guys have called your clinician and said, I just want an appointment, and how long that phone call can last. It's the bane of our existence, believe me, because it's coordinating so many schedules. There's no reason AI can't do it, and there's already products out there to do it. It's just working through the workflows in healthcare to making sure we're not exposing your data to somebody that should not have that data.
Ashley or JJ?
Yeah, I think the possibilities are endless, and as long as you have a close relationship with the customer and how your product's being used, we've only scratched the surface, and I've been in this field for over a decade, and we've barely scratched the surface. And so I think that's it's a very good thing because we don't know what we don't know until we give the tools to the people who have the problems so that they can innovate and solve the problems. And usually that not only solves the problem for them, that solves the problem for a lot of other people too. We use the example of using ramps to get on the sidewalk. That was originally implemented for people in wheelchairs, but look at how many people use that. Like if I'm on crutches, I'm gonna probably use that. If I'm riding my bike, I'm gonna use that. If I'm on my skateboard or something like that, skating, I'm gonna use that ramp. And so this is the beauty of innovation and diversity. We use equity versus equality all the time, and it really benefits everybody.
JJ? Anything?
I think they covered it, but I think I would just add, it's really allowed, similar to like educators being able to have more time with their students now with using AI. The same thing is true for folks who work with whatever business and customer service. They're able to now have more time to innovate in terms of how can they create unique experiences for guests or for customers. So I think that's been the most interesting thing I've seen so far.
Okay, Craig?
Yeah, a quick follow-up on that point. So this idea that, and Ashley touched on it too, of this democratization, right? This ability to get some of these skills in, and Greg talked about it as well, in the hands of folks that are in the organization. I think the democratization of some of these technical skills is possible, right? Through micro-credentialing or getting these skills out there in a way that an organization can get the most value out of it. And so I know one of the things that gets talked about in this space is really sort of fascinating about workforce, right? There's so many workforce issues that are challenges. And so I had one of my professors recently get really prompted on the spot of, is AI going to, destroy all of these jobs? Which is probably a weird sort of area to wander into, right, to talk about it. But what he said I thought was sort of thoughtful, which was a version of, a person not using these tools will potentially be replaced with AI, but a person using AI won't be replaced by a person not using it, right? Which is a long way to say, the more you gain access to these tools, the more you're credentialed to use these tools, the more potent any individual can be in their organization. And I think that's sort of a thoughtful way to kind of talk about how to grapple with this, right? So one of the things that I don't know why I think about grizzly bears a lot, but I just do. And great white sharks, by the way. This is a therapy session. I'm getting my fears out. But I don't think any of us are going to outrun these things. These things are here. To Ashley's point, we've been doing it. And the best way to deal with the things that are here is to get very good at these things, right? And two other quick points, right? I think you want to be able to create value in your businesses with these tools, and you want to be able to capture that value. And I think those are the keys to moving forward.
All right, thank you. I'd like to open it up to the audience now, and if you have a question, please just stand up and let us know your question, please. Please state your name first and then your question.
Tamika Jenkins, I'm with Hines County, and I really like your comments about the workforce change. And so my question is to Dr. Cephas and Mr. Townsend, what are the certificates or the certificates or the skills that a workforce could start to, change that to get those AI skills or those coding, skills?
Well, I can start. Yeah, that's kind of our, like I mentioned, our bread and butter with LinkedIn Learning. So we released we have a partnership with LinkedIn. So there's about 10 courses around AI and a few other digital skills that are free. If you, go to directly to LinkedIn Learning, you're gonna have to pay a subscription, but we made several courses free. So we can certainly connect after this to figure out how you can be a part of the Mississippi AI Collaborative that's been formed, and so we'd love to figure out how your organization can be a part of that. We also have the Microsoft Learn, which is a little bit more of the advanced skilling certifications, but that's also another option. And we with philanthropies. I give out a lot of, grants for subscriptions and for, to pay for the certifications for, folks in the organization. So those are, two of our key, certifications that your organization can leverage.
Yeah, I think also keep in mind that, it's levels to this, as they say. So K through 12, there's a place for them to learn skills to start making money. Everybody has a job sometimes when they're in high school. Instead of flipping burgers, you could be a social media expert for a local business, and make way more money. So there's a place to teach, especially high school students, and train them into this workforce. And you never know where that may take them. And then also college students. even those who are in technical fields oftentimes still are not learning about AI skills. Even when we hire people at Amazon, you'll be surprised the workforce that has no idea some of the things that we're working with as current state of the art. Because a lot of times, and no offense to the professors, but the academia curriculums, it's harder to change, it's harder to update. But tech moves so fast, and so you need additional skilling programs kind of on the outside to supplement what you're learning at a 4-year degree or even a community college or even a boot camp. And so there's also room for business owners to learn in the workforce. There's training that can happen across the board, literally, because there's no excuse now. And we need to, take responsibility as the ecosystem here in Mississippi to just, grab the bull by the horns and make sure everybody has an opportunity.
Go ahead.
Robert Lewis, I work for Entergy, but we're working in the AI space on trying to use just the standard chat models and whatnot. But one of the observations I'm making and I wanted to ask you about is you used the word democratization, and I'm saying if we're able to do a lot more with a lot less subject matter expertise now, and so we're shifting left from subject matter experts who really knew the nitty-gritties. And for instance, I was at the Bean Path, doing an Arduino class, and I said, well, wouldn't it be neat to add a joystick controller to change the output of this tune? Chat, tell me about this. And then I fed it some code, and it updated it. And I shifted left. Like, my understanding of the code was, I wasn't there, and I got the outcome. But how do you mitigate the risk that we're moving further left and letting people get more done, and they're putting so much, they're hanging their hat on it. But there comes the day when you have to roll up the sleeves and figure it out, like in a bad day. Does that make sense?
You're going to give me the hard question. Okay. All right.
Well, academia does move slow naturally.
He was going to go, but you raised your mic first.
Yeah, I know. Lord. Okay. All right. So there's always risk, right? And I think we have to understand that I don't care if a company tells you it's 100% guaranteed, they're lying. Again, AI is built on probabilities and statistics. You can never be 100% sure on anything. And so understanding that, I think it's more of a people and process issue and education. And so I think just letting people know that if you take something out the box and you just take it for face value, it's going to do what it's going to do, but you'll be much more better off if you do become somewhat of an expert and maybe let that, leverage that as a tool. As he said, in our schools, we should be teaching, hey, this is a tool, but leverage it alongside of being an expert in something, because that's never going to go away. It can help us in a lot of ways. I use YouTube University all the time to change parts on my Jeep and to do all kinds of DIY projects. But do I proclaim to be an expert in that? No. But it did help me achieve the task I was trying to achieve. But I'm not trying to do that for everybody in the room, right? And so I think that part is still going to need to be there. But it's just think of it as a tool. If we educate people and tell them that and present it like that, I think we'll be okay.
I think in the healthcare space, you're looking at two things. So, talking about fears, my fear is robots. I hate robots. And you would think, being in the IT industry, I would have no problem with robots. I don't like robots. I used to have nightmares as a kid about robots. So the idea of laying in a patient room and a robot coming in to to tell me that I have cancer, or to tell me I need to do this treatment on you, oh my gosh, I would just freak out. So that's that part in healthcare of you've got to have that subject matter to be able to sit down and talk to you about these and have compassion. And I think in a lot of industries, it's not just healthcare, it's other industries as well. You have to have compassion for your customers. And until a robot can actually do that portion, yes, AI will take over portion and take over jobs. There's no doubt. But you will never have that compassion portion using an AI. And compounding on the probability talk, it is probability. That's the whole key around AI. It's all probability. You still have to have somebody there to make that final determination. And it's one of the ethical struggles we're actually still discussing in healthcare is how do I sue a robot? You know, if an outcome was such that I needed to, file a malpractice suit, and AI was the one that made the determination of the treatment course, who do I actually sue? You know, it's just another thought there around, how far do we take this?
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, I'm going to add robots to great white sharks and grizzly bears. Thank you, Greg. But to your point, though, I think if you conducted a thought experiment and you sort of set the risk aside for a minute, which was part of your question that nationally addressed, the democratization of these tools, I think, needs to be driven by both the creation of value and the capture of value from a business perspective, right? If moving the lever and making it work helps your business, I think those are the right ways for many of us to think about these things, right? And the fact that these tools can be put in more hands, and to Natalie's point as well, right? It is a continuum of skill, but the more abilities we have to put these tools in our hands, I think the more businesses can differentiate, right? And that's what's going to be vitally important to business moving forward, right? And I think that's what a lot of companies are looking at doing now, right? How do they invest in these technologies in a way that helps them to differentiate? So it's genuinely a kind of an exciting time to be able to think about all of those things, right? Especially how companies can do that to create the value, to capture the value. And I'm sure there'll be businesses that we haven't ever thought of that are being thought of today that will be created on with some of these tools foundationally part of who they are.
Next. Go ahead.
Anik Kirkjan, I'm with the Beanpath. I'm the director of the Makerspace. I'm going to do a shameless plug for the AI Collaborative. I'm one of the co-founders. So we are, basically it's the Computer Science Teacher Association. Crystal Chapman, who also works, who's one of the instructional technology, sorry, for JPS. There's the Coding Academy, there's JSU, there's us, and JSU and Beanpath are creating an AI agency to start addressing the needs for one, small businesses, and what was discussed already, small businesses not being able to, one, access AI, be scared of AI, not being able to afford the instruction or guidance or stepping forward into that role. And the agency itself will be run by JSU students to start with. So this is a 9-month pilot that we are kicking off. So please, everybody here, you're obviously all interested in AI. Please go to start with Beanpath's, any of our social media. We'll start communicating actually officially. So everybody's sworn to secrecy in this room. We're not supposed to be talking about it.
Yeah.
Coming to you live, but secretly. No.
But I can't stop myself. JJ can't stop himself. We're just so excited about it. So please follow Beanpath. We've got Instagram, Facebook. Go to our website. We're going to start posting dates and opportunities. There's opportunities of working with us, learning opportunities. We've got an AI Skillet-thon, which is around the LinkedIn programs and certifications that JJ just mentioned. We have small business support, as I mentioned. If you have a small business, you can get involved and get support that way. And also through the Computer Science Teacher Association, teacher support. We have a whole area that's looking at how to support teachers in the classroom and also not just integrating into the classroom, but also, expose the students so that when they come out, they're not scared of it and they are literate in AI and leading the way. Thank you.
All right. We have time for one last question. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Capri Burton. I am a senior computer science major at Jackson State University, minor in marketing, and I currently work question is, how can industries, businesses, and institutions assist in understanding ethical aspects such as transparency for AI? Such as like the implementation of cookies and stuff, how that was later translated to be more informative about what cookies you can accept and not for tracking purposes. How can we do this for AI?
One of the top tools right now with AI and transparency is something called a model card. If you're not familiar with it, you can look it up. But several companies that have AI models in their products and they sell them to a customer, it's basically like a report card for the model. And it says a couple of things. It says this is the intended use of this product. This is the unintended use. Because I guarantee you people will use your product in ways you never thought that they would. And so it's very clear on that. And it's also very clear on this is where we perform well and this is where we don't perform well. And so that is supposedly the state-of-the-art transparency tool for AI companies. There are more type of tools and ways of doing that as well, like research papers that OpenAI published a couple this year as well. That talks about what they were doing to improve different things and where they actually fail. Because the biggest thing is that we're never perfect, especially when it comes to AI. So we should start communicating this to our customers. And whereas in the past, there was no incentive to do that. And so now more and more companies are doing that.
Yeah, real quick. I think there's going to be, to that point, a combination of both thoughtful and appropriate policy from governments, and we're seeing a little bit of that. We don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to stifle technology development, but I think you're going to need something in the guardrail world in terms of policy. And to Ashley's point, I think inside a company, as this moves forward and it's very, very fluid, you'll start having maybe offices of responsible AI or elements inside a company. So it helps me personally to think about the Industrial Revolution and the sort of the things that happen from a societal perspective, the tumults that happened, and how we got in and through that, right? We didn't want to stifle things, but we also don't want 13-year-olds working 6 days a week in a factory, right? So I think it's a combination of policy and then industry also stepping up and internalizing that to really grapple with it, to your question.
All right, before we move to our drawing, if you would please give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you all for attending today. We have a series, I think, of drawings and gifts. Okay? All right, for JJ, here we are. Thank you so much for being here today. Ashley. Greg. I'm going to run out of cord here, Craig, so you got to help me. There we are, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And then for our first drawing, all right, no AI was used in the drawing of this particular prize. We have Barbara Lofton. Barbara, I know Barbara. Come on up, Barbara. Okay, here we are.
Is it a lottery? Is it a lottery?
All right. Thank you so much for attending today. Remember, we do have another session. It's going to be 10:45 in here, but please feel free to take a break, grab something to drink, and browse around. Thank you so much.